I never realized how much I would ever relate to martial law. I started reading webtoons and specifically Let's Play when I didn't even have the idea of becoming a YouTuber. So to me, and maybe many of you, martial was and likely still is the best way to see the life of a YouTuber. How cool it can be, and how much it could weigh on them. But starting out, martial law is treated unfavorably, let's say. You see, to get started on his importance to the story, we need to get a basic understanding to Sam, our main character, and her story. All her life, Sam saw how video games could affect people, including herself. She loved how games could bring people together, and decided that she wanted to create that experience, eventually working towards and creating the indie game Ruminites. Now, indie games are a bit difficult to get off the ground. While they may be incredibly good, they might be difficult for everyone to see it. Luckily, that isn't a problem with YouTubers. YouTubers can make a game developer's career. Some names have gotten an almost god-tier status. The names Toby Fox or Scott Cawthon should sound incredibly familiar, as their games on YouTube have gotten a major spot in many gaming YouTubers' libraries and subsequently gained an almost cult-like status. However, the opposite is true. Games can fall when gaming YouTubers trash on them, and while I don't remember a ton of games that have been destroyed, much less games that didn't deserve it, Let's Play shows us what happens when the powerful might of a top gaming YouTuber accidentally trashes a good game. Martial law is not a villain, that's not an opinion, that's a statement. However, at first many of his interactions with the characters feel not great. Sam is our first interaction with him. Outside of just seeing his video, this is her first physical interaction with him. As neighbors. The perfect webtoon setup. And she spares no time explaining the disdain she feels towards him. At first introduction, when Marshall finds out she knows who he is, he's pretty excited, thinking that she wrote his Wikipedia page, or was an editor, which is probably kind of insulting in some degree. But when she explains that she's a game developer, he gets even more excited, ready to ask every question. Which makes sense, he's a gaming YouTuber, so of course he'd be excited to find a game developer. YouTubers usually love the thing that they do, or talk about. I'd probably have the same reaction if I met a webtoon artist. But when she explained that her game was Ruminite, the game he just trashed, he tries to explain his thought process. I suppose you've seen my recent video then. Oh boy. Look, what I said about your game. I wasn't trying to be mean. Part of my job is to properly review and critique games. I'm not really known for sugarcoating things. I know it can be difficult to receive criticism on something you've worked hard on, but good and bad reviews come with the business. It's something you'll have to get used to. This obviously makes Sam a little more than upset, accusing Marshall of playing the game incorrectly, to which he defends himself, "Hey, I get paid by gaming companies to feature their games, and I played yours for free. You got a lot of publicity at no cost. I basically did you a favor." Now, there are two sides to this argument. First, let's talk about Marshall. Marshall, believing that his critique wouldn't poorly affect her game, is a little short-sighted and a bit narrow-minded. YouTubers have a lot of pull in that respect. If I call out a webtoon for being good or bad, while you might not have read it, your opinion may be at the very least shifted. However, that brings us to the other side of the argument, the viewer. I think we forget that YouTubers are people. Especially YouTubers with a high amount of subs, like a gaming YouTuber with 3 million subscribers. YouTubers are often going to share their opinion. It's what they believe. However, I think that they can forget that their opinion is treated like fact. Often people defend what a YouTuber says not because they agree with their opinion, but because they like the YouTuber enough to blindly agree with what they say. We hear Vicky explain this. Though it is true he did play Ruminite incorrectly, it was Marshall's fans that took action against Sam, not Marshall himself. It sounds like his fans are more to blame in this instance. And it's true, while Marshall did load the gun, the fans pulled the trigger. A lot, and they hit their target a lot. When Marshall meets some of his fans, he's excited to see them. However, they reveal some less than favorable information. We wanted you to know that we helped get revenge with that game creator. Yeah, the game that made you rage so hard. You know, the game Ruminite. A bunch of your fans rated it really low on integer, cause it made you so mad. Hahaha, creator's account got shut down last I saw. And we get to see how much that weighs on Marshall. He wants to fix his mistake, debating releasing a vlog to redo some of his troubles, and we hear his girlfriend Monica explain the issues to basically everything he could do. Ending it off with, sometimes Marshall, you care too much, and that mindset is gonna tear you apart the more popular you become. And while it is a little rude, Marshall cares about everyone all the time. He literally tries to pay Sam for his mistake. He doesn't try to fight back or protect himself when Angela almost decks him in the face. Tries to do everything for Monica, from spending less time on videos to getting a haircut and waxing his chest. His interactions with fans and basically everyone else shows how much he cares about everyone else. Monica calls this out again. When talking to Sam about Marshall and how he's debating about playing her game again, she says, "I hope you realize how tender Marshall's heart is." Which is both symbolic, but also not. But more on that on another time. What's more interesting is the second part of the quote from before, and that mindset is gonna tear you apart. And she's not wrong. Marshall is one of the main characters, therefore we get to see a lot of him. Not as much as Sam, but we do get to see his personality, how he is, the side of the YouTuber that we don't get to see often, the personal side. The side that's not being recorded, live streamed, tweeted, or scripted. It's incredibly difficult to know someone just by watching them over a screen. And Marshall is meant to show that. We get to see glimpses of how Marshall really feels. First, at the coffee spot, The Daily Grinds, after almost being assaulted, we get to see him get kind of envious. Not of almost being assaulted, but the fact that Sam has friends who are willing to commit a violent misdemeanor. And when he sees those friends, you get to see the sadness in his eyes. He even walks in the rain, which is the very definition of being sad. And being sad is just a large portion of Marshall's character. The character that isn't seen by anyone. I'm not just talking about the viewers, but everyone around him. Marshall has an interesting way to hide himself from others. His switch. As a YouTuber, Marshall needed to separate who he was from who he wanted people to see him as. Martial Law versus Ben Lawson. The YouTuber versus the person. As someone gets bigger, they sometimes need to separate them. A person is complex, full of depth and struggles and pain and thoughts constantly, and while that's interesting, it may be difficult to watch sometimes. Sometimes a person needs to be a little more simple, a little more marketable. Marshall and Ben's personalities overlap at times. They're both kind, tender, hopeful. They both want a connection. However, there are clear differences, and we get to hear Marshall himself lament this issue. When he's talking about his relationship with Monica, he says, "She met Marshall at that party. Outgoing, fun-loving, and entertaining Marshall. But she never knew me before I was Martial Law. She's never known Ben Lawson. And the days I find it hard to be Marshall are the days I make her the most unhappy. If anything, I feel as though I lied to her, tricking her into liking a persona of mine, and not the real me. I know she likes the comedic Marshall, but can she also like Ben?" Ben is a different person, because we get to hear his past from his sister, Ava. "All you had to do was lay low, finish your degree, and you would have been set for the rest of your life. Instead, you got kicked out of Dad's old fraternity for breaking rules, drop out one semester into law school, get arrested for assault, and end up in rehab shortly thereafter." But we get to hear Marshall's reasoning. "Going to Dad's alma mater, his fraternity, and becoming a lawyer, that was the future Dad wanted for me. Yeah, I got kicked out of the frat because I had women stay the night one too many times. And I dropped out of law school because it was a waste of money if I didn't have the drive to finish it in the first place. I was arrested for assault because I got into a fight with a guy when I caught him trying to drug a girl. And since he ended up unconscious and in the hospital, the police had to step in. But the charges were dropped after they investigated. Witnesses even said I was sobbing because I didn't want to fight. And I put myself into rehab because I was done trying to find my happiness at the bottom of a bottle. And I haven't had a sip for almost a year. The line between Marshall and Ben is clear. While Ben might be in his past, it's still who he is now. It's still the side of him that struggles, the side of him that lets out the pain, the difficulty, the hardships, the things that he's struggling with. But it's a side that he keeps hidden from everyone else. Even touching on his depression, that's attached to Ben. It's attached to when no one can see him. And when he's martial law, we see the depression still there, but it can't bring him down. It's faded. It's not connected to him. It can only bring Ben down until Marshall himself breaks. Marshall started out kind of antagonized, and his past alcoholism and understandable violence would bring anyone else down. But that's just it. Those struggles don't keep him down. They made him martial law. Someone who thinks is better than Ben, but if he can't accept that Ben part of him, he's gonna lose himself. For these reasons and more, I'm putting Ben, or martial law, into chaotic good. Yeah, I'm a little upset that martial law didn't go into a lawful position, but it doesn't fit him. The YouTuber with 3 million subs is kind of known for disrupting the normal way of things, the normal convention, if you will. And I don't need to explain why the man who melts at dogs is in the good category, do I? But what do you think? Do you like martial law? Do you think he provides a good way to see a YouTuber's life? Leave it in the comments below. And like always, thank you for watching.